I've spent $60,000 just to make you happy, but why do you call me a wallet or an ATM? Lily, who is Max's wife, said angrily. We never asked for your help, she added. If it bothers you so much, why don't you stop the payments? Max said in a rude way. Even my eldest son Max acts like this, Lily continued. After making me pay for a $20,000 party and then a $40,000 wedding, they treat me like a money machine. Maybe I raised my son wrong. I won't let them boss me around anymore. I understand what you're saying. Are you sure about that? We won't let you see your grandchild, right? Max threatened. You don't have to worry. I'm happy to stop the payments from now on. It was a big change for Max and Lily, who have been taking care of me. My name is Chloe. I'm 56 years old. I've been struggling alone since my husband died 12 years ago. I work hard at a good company, where I've been for a long time. Some people might say I'm focused on my career. My children were teenagers when my husband passed away. Now they've finished college and have jobs. That makes me feel a bit better. I hope they'll start families of their own soon. As I thought about these things, I lived comfortably in the condo where I used to live with my children. Then, one day, Max called me and said, I want you to meet a woman I'm thinking of marrying. I was happy to agree. Max is turning 28 this year and works as a salesman for a big company. He used to be a bit of a player, but it seemed like he was finally settling down. On the day he brought the woman he wanted to marry, he said, Mom, it's been a while. This is my fiancée, Lily. Nice to meet you, as he introduced her. Lily worked as a receptionist at Max's company. She was very pretty, and I felt proud of my son for finding her. Congratulations to both of you. I'm here to support your happiness, I said with a smile as we talked. Eventually, they mentioned having an engagement party soon. I need to get ready. Mom, can you pay for the engagement party? It'll cost $20,000, Max asked me. I was surprised because I thought it would be around $10,000. But seeing how happy they were, I agreed and said, sure, it's a happy occasion. Later, my oldest daughter, Mia, came to visit. How's work going, Mia? I asked. The deadline was yesterday. I'm doing fine, Mom. Don't worry, Mia replied. Mia draws manga for a living. She hasn't had a big success yet, but she has her own series and earns enough to live on. She's always been good at drawing and loves manga, so it's the perfect job for her. By the way, Mom, Max is getting married, right? Mia asked. Yes, he came by with his fiancée, Lily, and they asked for $20,000 for the engagement party. I told her. Wow, that's a lot of money, Mia said. Well, they said they're going to use it for their wedding and to give gifts to thank people. Is that how it works? And so on the day of the engagement party, I gave them the $20,000 as promised. Both Lily and her parents seemed very happy. We'll use this money to start our new life together, they said as they put away the $20,000. They didn't give any gifts of thanks like I expected, but I told myself that's just how engagement parties go. As long as they have a happy marriage, it's okay, I thought. But a few days later, Max surprised me. We're having a big wedding with lots of guests, maybe around 250 people, he said. That sounds great. Mom, can you pay for the wedding up front? What? I have to pay. I thought weddings were paid for by the couple, I said. I'm counting on you, Mom. It's normal for parents to pay for the wedding. I already gave a lot of money for the engagement party. Lily's parents can't help, and I'll pay you back for the wedding gift, Max explained. I reluctantly looked at the bill Max had brought. To my surprise, it was for $40,000. The thought of paying so much money up front made me feel dizzy. How big is this wedding going to be? Isn't this too much? I asked. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and Lily wants everything to be perfect. Plus, don't we want Lily's parents to see how happy she is? Max said, making me feel trapped. I couldn't say no. Okay, it's a special occasion, I agreed. Max smiled and thanked me before leaving the room. Later, I paid the $40,000 up front to the wedding venue. It was tough to use my retirement savings, but I did it for my child's happiness. 2 months later, on the wedding day, the venue was more luxurious than I expected. Mia and I arrived early to get ready. As I was about to knock on the bride and groom's door, I heard them talking. I can't believe we're having such a fancy wedding thanks to Mom, Lily said. Yeah, and she gave us $20,000 for the engagement party, Max added. I even bought a new bag. What a great wallet, more like an ATM. Let's keep taking from it, Max. Mia and I were shocked to hear this. Lily happily said. If we ask her, she'll probably pay for the rest of the wedding, right? Of course she will. Then let's use the wedding gift for a honeymoon trip to Hawaii, and we'll bring my parents too. How about buying a high-rise apartment for our new home? That sounds perfect. Let's get my mother to pay. She has the money, Lily said. My hand was shaking as I raised it to knock on the door. Mia took my shoulder and led me away. I took a deep breath and held Mia's hand. Mia, there's something I need you to find out when the ceremony starts, I said. Sure, Mom. Leave it to me. And so Max and Lily's wedding began. I couldn't stop thinking about their earlier conversation when the MC introduced me and the spotlight fell on me. All I could do was bow. Mia, who had been going around toasting, came back. Mom, I checked with Lily's relatives. Both of her parents are fine. That's terrible. We need to confront them. I'll stay by your side, Mia said as it was time for the first outfit change. Lily left first, then Max followed. Now it's the groom's turn. His mother, Chloe, who raised him on her own, will escort him, the announcer said. I walked down the aisle to meet Max. Max seemed a bit drunk but happy. He said into the microphone, "This is my amazing mom." I kept a serious face and walked with Max out of the hall to the dressing room. Mia was there and talked to Max. Max, I need to ask you something. What is it, sis? Hurry up, I need to change, Max said quickly as he undressed. Mia heard their earlier conversation in the dressing room. How could you talk about Mom like that? She asked. You heard us? Well, whatever. Max replied rudely. Lily, who had changed into her dress, came in. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law, what's going on? Mia asked. Lily, we found out that your parents are healthy. They both have good jobs. Why are you making Mom pay for everything? What's happening? Mia asked. Lily exaggeratedly acted scared. Is this some kind of bullying from a sister-in-law? Scary, Lily said mockingly. I lost my patience with her disrespectful attitude. I've already paid $60,000 to make you happy, and yet you treat people like they're just wallets or ATMs. What kind of behavior is that? Lily laughed as if it was a joke, acting all superior over such a small amount. We're not in debt to you. Plus, it's normal for the groom's parents to pay for the wedding, right? But you lied about your parents being sick to buy a new bag, Mia said. Oh, you were listening in. That's a terrible habit. Watch your mouth, Mia, Lily angrily replied. Then she looked at Mia. I don't want to be lectured by an older sister who's still single at 30 and has a weird job as a manga artist. Maybe you're too nerdy to get married. You're hopeless when it comes to marriage, sis. Mia was stunned into silence. How dare you speak to me like that if you want to see your grandkids, Mom, Lily said. Mia couldn't believe what she was hearing. How dare you talk to me like that? I tried to scold them, but Max laughed and said, if you're going to talk like that, try stopping the payments. After all, I'm successful. I can handle it. It would be a pity to lose the money. I paid $20,000 for the engagement party and $40,000 for the wedding. And this is how they treat me. No thanks, only meanness. I must have made a mistake in raising my son. I've had enough. I won't let them control me anymore. I heard what you said. Are you sure? If you don't listen, you won't see your grandchild. Max threatened. But I said firmly, that's okay. You don't need to visit. I'll happily stop paying. Max and Lily were shocked. I'm ending our relationship here. I wish you all the best, I said, taking Maya's hand, and we left the place. We could still hear the happy sounds of the party as we walked away. A month later, Mia and I were having tea at home when the intercom buzzed loudly. Oh, Mom, it's Max. What should we do? Let him in, please, Mia said. Max, whom I hadn't seen for a month, looked very tired and worn out. Why the sudden visit, Max? I asked. Mom, you must have got the bill for the wedding venue by now. Why haven't you paid it? Huh? Oh, the bill for the remaining money. It was $45,000, right? I got it, but I don't have to pay it, I replied. Don't say that. We didn't get many wedding gifts and couldn't pay the bill, so now we're in debt, Max said. Maya laughed and said, from what I heard at the wedding, you two don't have a good reputation. Max, you've been acting bossy at work, and Lily, you've been mean to other women and showing off your looks. No wonder people didn't want to give you wedding gifts. Hey sis, stay out of this, Max said. I sighed and said, you both haven't been considerate of anyone around you, not just me. You caused the wedding expenses, so you should pay them yourselves. Max begged desperately. Mom, I'm in trouble. Lily can't stop spending money, and even her parents are taking advantage of me. Lily's love for money isn't a surprise, Max, and considering Lily's behavior, I can imagine her parents are the same. Please, Mom, think about helping us. Give us some money, Max begged. I replied sternly, you were the one who said, I'm successful, it'll be easy, and told me to stop paying, right? And didn't you say we were cutting ties? I don't have to give you any more money. Mom, don't call me Mom. I don't want to be called that by someone who only sees me as a money source. I'd like you to pay back what you owe for the wedding and engagement party, but I'll let it go. Please leave. Max, who looked shocked before, now looked angry. Are you really okay with this, Mom, cutting ties like this? How will you spend your old age without a husband? Don't you want to see your grandchild? Before I could respond, Mia stepped in. Don't worry. I'll be with Mom. And what can you, an unsuccessful comic artist, do? You can't even have kids. Just be quiet. Max was furious. Ah, so scary. You make fun of me as a failed manga artist, but my manga was one of the best-selling this year. Did you know? It's going to be an anime and movie next year. I'm in a much better financial situation than you with your debts, Mia said confidently. She then revealed her successful career. Max noticed something on her finger. Hey sis, that ring. What's going on? Mia showed the ring on her left finger. Yes, that's what's happening. I'm getting married to my editor. He's important at a big publishing company, so we can take care of Mom. We don't need you anyway. We never planned for our kids to take care of us, Mia said. Thanks, Mia. We'll handle everything ourselves. We'll invite Mom to the wedding, but you don't have to come, I told Max firmly. Mia and I guided Max towards the front door. Please, Mom, and you too, sis, Max said, trying to appeal to us. Then he asked, are you going to give us money? I had a realization. That director at your wedding is a client of my company. It seems your special treatment was because of me. But I've stopped it. Handle things on your own now. Goodbye, I said. Mia and I pushed Max outside and locked the door firmly. Max protested outside, but after a while, it became quiet. A year went by. Right after that, I sold the house to avoid Max and Lily's visits. I bought an apartment for older people to live in when I get old. A neighbor from my old place told me Max and Lily came and made a scene, asking why I wasn't there. So I think selling the house was the right choice. Max and Lily gave up on their dream of a fancy apartment and now live in a small place. Max got demoted at work because of his behavior. He's still working, surprisingly. Lily stopped working after getting married but kept spending money. They ran out of money quickly. Even with debts, Lily keeps spending, and her parents keep asking for money. They fight a lot. I hope they learn how hard it is to earn money and appreciate people. But that might be too much to ask. Mia and I still have a good relationship. Her husband is nice to me and they're expecting a baby. I can't wait to spoil my daughter and grandchild. That's what keeps me going every day.
In my formative years, my bond with my mother was unbreakable. We shared countless moments, from movie nights to weekend baking sessions. However, as I matured, our relationship underwent a seismic shift when my mother remarried. Suddenly, everything seemed to unravel. Her new husband brought his own children into the picture, crowding our already cramped 2-bedroom apartment. Space became a luxury, and in an attempt to accommodate everyone, my mother made a heart-wrenching decision. She packed my belongings into trash bags and discarded them. The sight of my cherished memories, reduced to refuse, left me utterly devastated. My eyes fell upon the remnants of my past life. Photo albums, trophies, posters, and mementos that once adorned my walls. It was a painful realization that all I held dear had been callously tossed aside. I felt a profound sense of betrayal. How could my mother erase my existence, my accomplishments, my treasures? Fueled by a mix of anger and desperation, I confronted her, demanding an explanation for her cruel actions. In a fit of rage, I hurled hurtful words at her, questioning her choices and priorities. Regret washed over me, but at that moment, my anguish drowned out reason. In the aftermath of our heated confrontation, I was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. The house that had once been my sanctuary now felt hostile and unwelcoming. Determined not to surrender my rightful place, I retrieved my discarded belongings from the trash. With unwavering resolve, I reclaimed my space in the apartment, refusing to be displaced by my mother's new family. As I defiantly carried my belongings back into the apartment, I saw shock and disbelief etched on my mother's face. She tried to protest, insisting that I couldn't simply reclaim what was lost. Yet, I remained resolute. That house held the echoes of my entire life, and I wouldn't allow my mother's new family to strip me of my home. Upon returning to my room, I fervently unpacked my belongings, determined to restore the order and familiarity that had been ruthlessly disrupted. My mother, standing in the doorway, pleaded with me to stop, but my anger overshadowed any empathy I might have felt. I couldn't allow her to stand in my way. When she attempted to enter my sanctuary, I forcibly pushed her out and slammed the door shut, a gesture of defiance that startled even me. It was an unprecedented hostility directed at my own mother, but I felt she had abandoned me, choosing her new family over the bond we once shared. After that incident, communication between us became strained, laced with bitterness. I knew my actions had wounded her, but I couldn't summon the compassion to care. The house crackled with tension, aggravated by my stepfather's constant disparaging remarks about my presence in the house. I grew increasingly agitated, feeling my patience wear thin by the day. The breaking point arrived when my stepfather audaciously claimed my room for his children. I was incredulous. This man had already stripped away everything I held dear, and now he sought to take my last refuge. I confronted him, vehemently asserting that he couldn't barge in and seize my space. He dismissed my protests, citing my mother's agreement to his plan, and I seethed at the thought of my mother betraying me once more. Our confrontation escalated into a heated exchange of insults. I lashed out, labeling him a nobody who couldn't provide for his family without taking from others. In response, he accused me of being a selfish brat unable to accept change. In the end, I found myself defeated, my mother siding with him, urging me to compromise and make sacrifices for the sake of the family. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had already sacrificed too much. Fueled by anger and desperation, I threatened my mother and stepfather, vowing to teach them a lesson. Their shocked expressions didn't deter me. I stormed back to my room, slamming the door behind me, feeling utterly powerless and alone. Amidst my despair, a memory flickered to life. The two-bedroom apartment belonged to my paternal grandmother. She had entrusted it to my parents when they first moved to the city. In moments of desperation, she had always been my pillar of support, filling the gaps my mother couldn't. I picked up my phone, dialing her number. When she answered, I poured out the tale of my mother and stepfather's betrayal, seeking solace and guidance from the one person who had never let me down. I recounted the entire ordeal to my grandmother, explaining how my belongings had been discarded once again and how they were now attempting to take away my room. My grandmother's fury was palpable. Despite being out of the city, she promised to return in 2 days and confront my mother and stepfather, making it clear that they couldn't mistreat me without consequences. Relief flooded over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt supported, knowing I had someone willing to fight for me. As I hung up the phone, I anxiously awaited her arrival, uncertain about what lay ahead but hopeful that change was on the horizon. When the doorbell rang, I hurried to answer it. My grandmother stood there, her expression fierce, eyes ablaze with anger. She had always been my protector, and I knew she wouldn't allow anyone to harm me. I had held my ground for 2 days, refusing to let them take my room. As soon as she entered the apartment, she spotted my mother and stepfather, shock etched on her faces. Without warning, she slapped my mother hard, a sudden and shocking display of violence. My mother stumbled back, clutching her cheek. When my stepfather tried to speak, my grandmother swiftly struck him on the chest, his face draining of color as he realized the strength of the force he was dealing with. My grandmother scanned the small apartment, taking in every detail. She then turned to my mother and stepfather, announcing that she was the owner of the apartment and that I was her granddaughter. Fear gripped them as they comprehended the gravity of the situation. My grandmother lectured them sternly about their mistreatment of me, her words cutting through the tension in the room. A profound sense of relief washed over me. For the first time since my mother's remarriage, I felt someone was truly on my side, fighting for my cause. The air hung heavy with tension as my grandmother's stern voice echoed through the apartment. My mother and stepfather, seething with anger and indignation, were put in their place. But my grandmother wasn't finished. "You two should be ashamed of yourselves," she declared, her voice unwavering, demanding accountability for their actions. My grandmother's scolding cut through the room like a sharp blade. "How dare you treat your own daughter this way? Throw her out of her room. It's a disgrace," she admonished, her voice filled with righteous anger. When my mother attempted to speak, my grandmother silenced her with a raised hand. "No, I don't want to hear it. Pack up your things, then take your stepchildren and get out of my apartment. I don't want to see either of you again until you learn to treat your own blood with respect." Her words hit my mother and stepfather like a wrecking ball. They stared at her, mouths agape, unable to comprehend the gravity of the situation. My mother tried to protest, explaining they had nowhere else to go, but my grandmother was resolute. With a look of fierce determination in her eyes, she stood her ground. "I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. You can't just throw away your daughter's things and expect everything to be okay. You need to learn how to be a better mother and a better person." My mother and stepfather seemed on the verge of arguing, but my grandmother shifted her gaze to me. With tenderness and concern, she assured me, "You're the only one who's staying here. I won't let them hurt you anymore. You're always welcome in my home." A whirlwind of emotions washed over me, relief, gratitude, and a twinge of guilt. My grandmother had taken a drastic step, kicking my mother and stepfather out of her home. Yet, I couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness at finally having someone in my corner. As my mother and stepfather hastily packed their belongings, their faces contorted with anger and disbelief, my grandmother turned to me and offered a small smile. She enveloped me in a warm embrace and said, "Don't worry, my dear. Everything is going to be okay now." It was a moment of triumph, orchestrated by my fiercely protective grandmother who saw the injustice and took decisive action to make things right. Despite the turmoil, I found solace in her unwavering support, knowing I wasn't alone in this battle. I toiled day in and day out, pouring my sweat and effort into my work, yet my contributions went unnoticed. My family seemed to revel in spending the money I earned, but there was never any appreciation, only a spotlight on my shortcomings. My sister, for reasons I could never fathom, was consistently jealous of me. She was indolent, uninterested in work, and conveniently blamed me for her own misdeeds. My parents, in turn, readily believed her accusations, scolding me without hesitation. Life was far from fair in our household. Each time an incident occurred, my parents would remind me that I was older, expected to be more mature and responsible, while she was allowed to get away with her behavior, creating a toxic atmosphere. This had become the norm in my life, a scenario perhaps not uncommon, but what followed was truly extraordinary. One day, a heated argument erupted between my sister and me when she took my favorite dress without permission and ruined it. She displayed no remorse, dismissing it as a trivial item. However, that dress held sentimental value. It was the first thing I had ever purchased for myself, with my hard-earned money. When I asserted that I wasn't her caretaker, she retorted that the family would always love her more, and she'd never have to work a day in her life. I didn't grasp the full meaning of her words until a few weeks later, when she stood before me, proudly announcing her teenage pregnancy. The family's reaction to this life-altering news was strikingly different from their response to my minor mistakes. It was glaringly evident that, regardless of her actions, they would unconditionally support her. Although they displayed momentary displeasure, they'd eventually embraced the idea, assuming it was my duty to not only take care of my sister, but also her unborn child. When I inquired about the baby's father, she evaded the question. On further pressing, she burst into tears, silencing any further inquiries. The burden of responsibility fell squarely on my shoulders, while my own needs and well-being were utterly disregarded by the very people who were supposed to care for me. I attempted to reason with them, but it became abundantly clear that my words fell on deaf ears. The breaking point came when my sister openly admitted, right in front of me, that she intentionally got pregnant to make my life a living nightmare. All the emotions I had suppressed surged to the surface, yet arguing with them seemed as futile as arguing with the wind. So I kept my peace for approximately 2 months, fervently seeking a job that would whisk me away from this suffocating environment. To my delight, it happened. I secured a job 800 miles away with excellent pay. However, the moment I shared the news of my move, my family's reaction was far from supportive. They expressed their anger, bombarding me with unnecessary questions about my responsibility and the baby's future. I couldn't comprehend why I, the sibling, was being held accountable for my sister's choices. While I was more than willing to assist them financially, their expectations had crossed a line. I couldn't sacrifice my entire life to be the sole caregiver for my sister's child. Despite my family's relentless efforts to sway my decision, from initial sweetness to outright yelling, I stood my ground. They resorted to emotional manipulation and gaslighting, trying to make me question my own judgment. I couldn't help but wonder if this was truly my fault, despite the fact that I had always gone above and beyond to help my family without expecting anything in return. Thank you for the supportive comments. Your encouragement means a lot. To those questioning why my teenage sister would intentionally get pregnant, expecting me to shoulder the entire responsibility, I'm just as puzzled. The most ironic part is that the father of the child was still in the picture, yet nobody expected him to step up. He was there, having lunch with my family, laughing and socializing. My family had this bizarre notion that my sister and her boyfriend were too young to handle such a significant responsibility, leaving me to foot the financial burden. I couldn't fathom why I should be responsible for their choices. They were perfectly capable of finding jobs and devising a plan to support their child if they chose to keep it. Why should I sacrifice my life for this mess? I have no clue about this guy's parents or what my sister is really up to. All I know is they're doing everything in their power to demotivate me, hoping I'll just give in and stay here. Hello, I'm updating after a whole 45 days, which I know is super late, but I have so much to share. I would have updated yesterday, but I faced some tech issues. You're talking to the new tech person from my family company. Just kidding. That wasn't a great first impression, but I'm proud of myself for landing this position. Speaking of the devil, my sister is apparently in her second trimester, indicating that she was pregnant long before she announced it, and intentionally so. My family was furious when they heard I was moving and tried everything possible to stop me, even attempting to create a scene at the airport. The audacity. They're acting like I'm some neglectful mother leaving her newborn behind, while the real mother, my sister, is being treated like a typical teenager who found herself in a difficult situation. Every time I think the drama is over, more keeps coming. My family is unhinged. I can't believe how unbothered they are about this situation, behaving as if my choice to work 800 miles away is just a rebellious phase. Adding to the chaos, my mom called me yesterday, suggesting I should adopt the baby once it's born and pose as the mother so my sister can restart her education without judgment for being a teen mom. It seems like everything my family does is for her. Just when I thought they couldn't do worse, they proved me wrong. I was so fed up that I told my mom straight away that I might not even want to come back, let alone adopt the kid. I've been clear that I won't take responsibility for my sister or her child, something I've repeated for a long time. Of course, my mom dismissed everything. Today, a friend called me, asking about my supposed pregnancy, a rumor spread by my family. I've decided to put an end to this once and for all. I made an announcement on my social media page, exposing them completely. Yes, my family thinks I went overboard, but I simply don't care anymore. Am I the villain for this? I think not. I believe all of you are entitled to your opinion, but the way you wrote it, it's clear you'd never help your sister anyway. It's unfortunate that she's also problematic. but I can't blame just one person. I don't know how much patience God gives you all. If this situation is causing you so much trouble, cut them off. You can choose the middle ground. Your family has always treated you wrongly, so I'd say it's well-deserved. Why would you take care of the baby anyway? It's insane. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's stories. Remember, if you have a story to share, you can email us using the address in the description. If you'd like to be featured, please let us know, and we'll pin your comment at the top. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. We'll see you in the next one. After being disowned by my family over 8 years ago, they've reached out to invite me, my 27-year-old wife, and another female acquaintance for Christmas. I've received a mix of advice from friends, with one suggesting I turn to this online community for insight. I'm a 25-year-old male, the youngest of 4 kids born to my 52-year-old mom and 54-year-old dad. My siblings, whom I'll refer to as Michael, 31, male, Sarah, 28, female, and my twin brother Carl, 25, male, all excelled in physical sports. My dad was a star basketball player at Editsu School. My mom played volleyball. Michael excelled in soccer, Sarah in softball, and Carl was the star running back on the football team. I, on the other hand, showed an early interest in archery, which my family regarded as a wimpy sport. They seldom attended my events, and I often had to plead for their presence. Between the ages of 14 and 16, I participated in around 20 archery tournaments, while my parents only showed up to one. Though I wasn't neglected, they were emotionally distant, leaving me feeling overshadowed by my siblings. When I tried to address this, they labeled me an attention seeker. However, my disownment wasn't related to these issues. At 15, I began dating Amy, who was also 15 at the time. We introduced her to my family, and they liked her. However, almost 2 years later, one of Amy's former friends revealed that she had been cheating on me with an unnamed guy. Confronting her, she confessed that it was my twin brother, Carl. She claimed her feelings for him had surpassed those for me. Enraged, I confronted Carl at home, resulting in a physical altercation where I punched him and knocked him out. Although my violent reaction was regrettable, it was the culmination of years of resentment toward him and my family. To avoid legal consequences, my family agreed not to press charges against me. Instead, I was sent to live with my estranged paternal aunt, who lived 2 hours away and was 48 years old at the time. Since then, I've had no contact with my immediate family. Initially challenging, I've managed to move forward with the support of my aunt and her 48-year-old husband, gradually letting go of the desire to mend the broken relationship with my family. I transferred to a different high school and eventually attended a university in my aunt's city, where I graduated as an electrical engineer. Later, I met my wife and married her. When it came time to plan our wedding, I considered inviting my estranged family, but I decided against it to avoid any potential drama. My wife and I purchased a house an hour away from my aunt's place, and we were blessed with a daughter about a year ago. Recently, I received a Facebook message from my parents expressing a desire to reconnect over Christmas at their house. I told them I'd think about it as I might have other plans, but promised to provide a clear answer soon. In the meantime, both Michael and Sarah sent me friend requests on social media, which felt rather strange. My wife, who is 2 months pregnant, suggested that if I chose to go, she and our daughter would spend Christmas at her father's house to avoid unnecessary stress. I agreed with her, considering her well-being. My dilemma is whether to go and attempt to reconcile with my family or not. I'm torn on what to do. On one hand, it's possible they feel remorse for what they did to me and want to apologize. On the other hand, there's the fear that if I go, they might pressure me to apologize to Carl, something I'm not willing to do. Any advice on this matter would be greatly appreciated. Top advice before reading the update. I think you should go another time. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Visit your family at a less stressful time to see if they have any ulterior motives, It might just be about them wanting to see their grandchildren and not necessarily about you, which would be hurtful to you. Yeah, I agree. Go another time. I was thinking the same thing. It could be related to the grandkids. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Christmas is too big of an event to meet them. Also, please update us. I can't get this post out of my head. I can't imagine a parent kicking out their child who was betrayed by their other child. They might want to reconnect due to money or their grandchild. I don't know, but it's weird that even his siblings texted OP. I hope it's for good reasons, though. I wouldn't consider spending Christmas away from my pregnant wife for them. Maybe I'm missing something, but why choose Christmas to reach out? They could have contacted me at any time and given me the chance to choose a convenient time to reconnect. They're the ones trying to mend things, so their timing seems odd to me. I personally wouldn't go unless you truly want them back in your life. The situation seems fishy to me. It's possible they found out about my successful child and are now attempting to heal the family image to avoid looking like they abandoned their son years ago. It feels like a trap. I noticed they didn't open with any remorse or sign of an apology. They might want something from me: money, free work, an organ, or access to my children. Or maybe they just want to appear good to their friends. I'm not saying don't go, but keep your expectations low. Be prepared for them to ask me to do something for them in order to reconcile properly and have a quick exit strategy ready. As a parent, I can't fathom going no contact with one of my children for 8 years, especially after the other child did something so cruel to them that they had to resort to hitting them. It's inconceivable to me. I would understand if my son hit his brother under such circumstances. We're all human, and moving past the fact that they abandoned me and turned their backs for 8 years is my choice. Personally, I'm not sure if I could. If I can't or don't want to see them again, I doubt anyone would blame me. If they do blame me, they don't know the full story. And if they do know the full story and still blame me, they're not worth my time either. Now for the update. I wanted to post earlier, but some things got in the way. 2 days after Christmas, my wife began experiencing unbearable pain in her abdomen area. She could hardly stand on her 2 feet. Her sister and I rushed her to the hospital, where we learned that my wife had suffered a miscarriage and that the fetus had to be removed right away. The worst part for me was explaining to my wife what had happened. Due to complications surrounding the operation, my wife had to stay in the hospital for 2 more days. I've been trying to stay strong for my wife and daughter, but honestly, I'm struggling right now. As for the updates on the original post, most of you who commented on the same day advised me not to spend Christmas with them due to the significance of that holiday. I agreed with the advice and decided to spend the rest of the holidays with my wife. When I texted my family, stating my decision, I expected them to argue with me. Surprisingly, they responded by saying they respected my opinion and looked forward to seeing me after the holidays. Curiosity got the best of me, and I started digging into my family to understand why they had reached out after all these years. I found out that Michael is a corporate lawyer working for a major company in our hometown, married with 2 daughters. Sarah, on the other hand, appeared to be married to a doctor and had a son. 8 years ago, she was studying to be a nurse. My friend, whose parents were friends with mine, informed me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating 8 years ago, due to mail fraud. Carl, my twin, married Amy right after high school, and they have 2 kids. I couldn't pinpoint their exact occupations, but the fact that they bought a big house last year suggested they were financially stable. My dad seemed to be going through a midlife crisis, while my mother was heavily involved in the wellness community. I tried to analyze why they might want to reconnect. One possibility was money, but considering my siblings' financial stability, that seemed unlikely. Another suggestion was organ donation, although it didn't make sense given that Carl, my likely match as my twin, was seen skiing in a Facebook post just a week before Christmas. Then there was the matter of my daughter. They might be reaching out to have a relationship with her. Although she wasn't their first granddaughter, I suspected they found out about her through my wife's public Facebook account. My next step was to contact my estranged aunt, the one who took me in, and inform her about the situation. She explained to me why my grandparents had disowned her. After college, she came out as bisexual and started dating her girlfriend, leading to immediate disownment. However, about 4 years ago, my grandpa began to reconnect, and recently, he had been inquiring about me, my life, marriage, and whether I had kids. My aunt's response was swift and confrontational. She directly challenged my grandpa for his sudden interest in my life, particularly after he had supported Carl for his actions. That's when the whole situation took a surprising turn. Grandpa explained that he believed I deserved to be estranged because, according to him, I had cheated on Amy with one of her close friends. He viewed cheating as a grave offense due to his religious beliefs. According to my family's version of events, the friend who I allegedly cheated with confessed to Amy, who then sought comfort from Carl and Sarah. When I learned about this, I confronted Carl and Sarah, attacking them brutally. Sarah, who had attempted to mediate between me and Carl, was unharmed during the confrontation. Hearing this revelation from my aunt left me in shock. I couldn't fathom the depths of their animosity, leading them to concoct such a terrible lie about me. Later, my aunt disclosed the whole truth to Grandpa, who was utterly shocked as he had always believed Carl to be a good kid. Grandpa then demanded my aunt to provide my phone number, but she refused. I eventually uncovered the real reason my parents and siblings had reached out to me. It turned out Grandpa had given them an ultimatum. Either they apologize for their past mistreatment and invite me to the family Christmas dinner, or they would be cut off from his vast fortune. He was a multi-millionaire, and their financial greed motivated their sudden interest in reconciling. Instead of seeking genuine reconciliation for their past wrongdoings, they were driven by selfish motives. After learning the truth from my aunt, I decided to cut all ties with them. Why should I respond to people who only valued me for the potential inheritance they could gain? In my eyes, they were all dead to me. I had a supportive wife to care for, a family that respected and loved me, and supportive in-laws who were there for us. However, the story didn't end there. 3 days after New Year's Eve, I received an unexpected call on my work phone from an unknown number. Despite being accustomed to such calls due to my career, I picked up, only to hear my grandfather's voice on the other end. He must have obtained my number from my company's website. Surprisingly, his first words were an apology for not attempting to contact me over the past 8 years. He expressed his apologies for missing significant milestones in my life, such as my graduation, wedding, and the birth of my daughter. Frankly, I hadn't been particularly close to him before, so his decision to cut me off financially didn't affect me deeply. As our conversation continued, he revealed his disgust for the rest of my family and stated that he was cutting them off as well, adding me to the list. I found myself conflicted about this news. While the money would undeniably be helpful, I didn't want him to manipulate the situation to force a relationship between me and my daughter. Our conversation lasted about half an hour, during which I began to think that perhaps I could build a genuine connection with my grandpa. However, my feelings changed abruptly when he made a comment that infuriated me. He expressed disappointment that my daughter hadn't taken the family name. To provide some context, after marrying my wife, we discussed using her last name for our future children due to legal constraints preventing me from adopting her name. We made this decision together as a couple. At that moment, I couldn't contain my anger and let loose on my grandpa, labeling him as a senile old man and hurling hurtful words. I made it clear that I never wanted him to contact me again. The audacity of his comment, considering what I had gone through, was beyond infuriating. I resolved not to let him use any potential inheritance to control me. Even if I received the money, my plan was to donate it to a local charity. However, given his history of empty promises, this outcome seemed unlikely. The past few weeks had been incredibly challenging for me. My wife had taken measures to protect our privacy by privatizing her Facebook account, and my in-laws had done the same. How my estranged family planned to contact me remained a mystery, although I suspected they might resort to extreme measures, perhaps even hiring a private detective. As far as I knew, they didn't have information about where I currently lived. but one could never be too certain. I've considered getting a restraining order, but it's complicated given the presence of lawyers in the family. I didn't get the chance to answer some questions from my last post before it was inexplicably deleted. I'll try my best to respond to any questions over the next day or two, but after this, I won't be using the site for a while. Thank you all for your advice, and I wish you the best in this new year. I am profoundly sorry for your loss, OP. I can't even begin to fathom the pain you and your wife must be enduring. Your family's behavior is beyond belief. Their audacity knows no bounds. They don't deserve any more of your time and energy. Forget about them. I genuinely hope they don't bother you anymore, allowing you to focus on your family at home. Thank you for taking the time to update us. Please accept my condolences. I hope your wife recovers soon. Your family has faced some difficult weeks, but don't let these people get to you. Regarding your grandpa's comments about the last name, at least the truth is out, exposing their true colors. Let your grandpa keep the money if it comes your way before you make any decisions. Take your time and think it over calmly. You've chosen wonderful people as your family, your wife, daughter, and in-laws. They are the ones who truly matter. The rest of them can go to hell. I'm sorry for all you've been through and the loss of your child. Remember, you have a family that loves and supports you. You are wanted and cherished by them, even if your parents and siblings don't see it. Please seek professional support and help for yourself and your wife. You've been through a lot, and it's crucial to have the right support. As for the situation with your granddad, it might have convinced him that your aunt's claims were false, especially since they tried to portray you as unstable. While you had every right to be offended, you may have acted impulsively. I understand you've been through a lot, and this might have been the final straw for you. It's just a different perspective to consider. Sending you love and strength. I genuinely hope your wife gets better soon, and I hope the new year brings positive changes for you. At the end of the day, how your granddad perceives you shouldn't matter. A relationship based on money isn't genuine. This might affect the relationship your aunts and grandpa have, but truthfully, they never really had a meaningful relationship to begin with. My older brother, a 30-year-old male, pursued higher education and later worked as an accountant in the city. Meanwhile, I, a 27-year-old male, started working for my dad as a plumber at the age of 15. I attended college to obtain qualifications in plumbing and gas. Around the time the pandemic began, my brother moved back from the city and joined my dad, who was 55 years old at the time, in our family plumbing business. Unfortunately, my dad's health had deteriorated due to asbestosis, rendering him unable to work effectively. Despite his declining health, he continued to work alongside me on Fridays, even though I had taken over the business operations for the past 2 years. During the pandemic, we faced challenges initially, but we managed to bounce back. We expanded our business, now operating 50 vans, each with one qualified and one trainee plumber. However, last month, my dad announced his decision to step down from the business due to his health. To my dismay, he handed over the business to my brother and asked me to relinquish my role as the acting CEO. This decision deeply upset me, especially considering my long-standing dedication to the business. In the beginning, it was just my dad and me, as my brother had no interest in joining the family business, dismissing it as unworthy of his time. Now he was suddenly the boss, despite lacking knowledge of our trade. I confronted my dad about his choice, but he justified it by pointing out my brother's family responsibilities and university education. Many of our employees were also unhappy with this decision, expressing their intention to leave if I did. Faced with this situation, I decided to leave the family business and start my own. Despite the hurtful messages and criticisms I received, I expressed gratitude to those who supported me. My plan was to reach out to our large clients, hoping to take over projects that had been postponed due to the pandemic. I'd also had the support of 20 colleagues willing to work with me. With my savings from the past 12 years, I believed I had enough to start my own business and stand on my own feet. Despite the challenges, I was determined to make my new venture successful. although I couldn't help feeling guilty about competing with my family. You shouldn't have to endure this injustice. They not only took the business away from you, but also from all the loyal employees who don't want to work under an inexperienced CEO. It's not just about you, Hall. It's about everyone affected by this decision. Your father could have split the business 50-50, with your brother handling the accounting side and you managing production. I would suggest offering this solution to your father. If he refuses, I would advise cutting all contact and blocking relatives. In your shoes, I would start my own business and never look back. Your brother turned his back on the family business while you poured your heart and soul into building it. Honestly, I thought your brother's return would unite us all into one big family company. It's heartbreaking that your father allowed this to happen, especially the significant pay cut you had to endure. This clearly shows how he values you compared to your brother. I am truly sorry for what you're going through. I hope you find the strength to run your brother's business out of the market. Thank you for your support. The most difficult part is that my brother agreed to the pay cut. I was still earning a decent wage, but it felt like a betrayal. I'd always believed my father would divide the business between us, not leave me on the sidelines after everything I did to build it. Now for an update. I want to make it clear that I don't intend to start a business with the purpose of destroying my brother. Despite my anger, I've invested almost 13 years in this business, and I don't want to see anyone lose their job or witness the downfall of the company. It's currently 5 a.m. in England, and your support has been invaluable. I plan to talk to my father around 8 a.m. I'll take him out for breakfast to have an honest conversation. I'm not sure if I'll get the answers I seek, but I love my family and want my future kids to know them. I'll update you all after today's events. Second update. As I mentioned in one of the comments, I believe my family has found my post, and they confirmed it this morning when I arrived at my parents' house. My mom greeted me with tear-streaked eyes, and my dad and I went out for breakfast to talk. He didn't utter a word during the drive there. Upon our arrival, and then again on the way back, he asked if we could pull over to talk. It was the first time I had ever seen my dad cry. When I confronted him, asking why he had done this to me, he confessed he didn't know. I pressed him, and he finally revealed that he felt he owed it to my brother for not being there for him as much as he was for me during our upbringing. There were moments my brother needed him, but we were always working. I couldn't fathom it. After 12 years of relentless dedication, this was his justification. I told my father that I had invested half my life working for the business, and now he was sidelining me just because my brother had returned. It hurt me in ways I couldn't express. To my surprise, he wasn't angry when he discovered the post I had shared. Instead, he seemed remorseful. He admitted that my mother was devastated after reading the comments about how badly they had treated me. She believed I would never talk to them again. My dad acknowledged that he should have split the business between us, realizing that it would require both of us to keep progressing. He apologized for never expressing how proud he was of everything I had achieved. He understood my brother would never agree to a 50-50 arrangement. He pleaded for me to return, saying my brother would need me, but I replied that it was no longer my concern. I tried to make it work for 3 weeks after my demotion and pay cut, but my brother refused to listen, dismissing my expertise, so I left. My dad broke down, confessing that he had torn the family apart and regretted what he had done. I couldn't fathom why it took him so long to realize my value in the company. In the third update, I had several successful Zoom calls with clients, and they informed me they would be sending proposals for upcoming work. Fortunately, the start dates didn't clash, a concern that had weighed heavily on my mind. 3 of my experienced colleagues had left my previous workplace and chose to join me voluntarily, an affirmation that touched me deeply. At this point, I had everything I needed to start my new business, 3 vans and the tools I had amassed over the years. Then my father called and invited me over for dinner. Uncertain but hopeful, I accepted, thinking it might be a step in the right direction. When I arrived, my entire family was present. The atmosphere was tense. My mother avoided eye contact, and my brother acted as if I didn't exist. My dad asked both my brother and me to join him in his office. He began questioning when I would return to the company, stating that they needed me back early Monday morning. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told them both that I wouldn't be returning, that I had started my own business. I questioned my brother, asking what he meant by we, considering he was the one who had been given the business. My brother lost his temper, demanding to know why I would leave if I truly cared about the company. I didn't hold back, expressing my frustration. I reminded him that I had dedicated 12 years of my life to make the company successful, just like him. Unlike him, I didn't seek all the glory, and I wouldn't allow myself to be treated poorly. I told him to leave so I could talk to Dad. I confronted my father, asking him about his apology earlier in the day and why he expected me to return despite everything. He couldn't meet my gaze. I said my goodbyes to my cousins, nieces, and nephews and walked out. I spent about 3 hours writing, finding solace before returning here to share my thoughts. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for the personal messages, comments, rewards, and all the encouraging words. I'll try to respond to everyone, but I'm exhausted and will likely fall asleep. In the fourth update, it's been a while since I last shared. I've had a lot going on in the past few weeks. The new business is thriving. We have plenty of work and are making good money. At the year's end, I plan to expand, and I couldn't be happier about that. My fiancé and I are overjoyed. She's busy planning our dream wedding, although she wants me to wear a suit. I insist on my kilt. Waking up next to her every day brings me immense happiness. She's been my rock through everything. Regarding my family, my father and brother still refuse to talk to me. They declared they won't attend our wedding, even though they haven't been invited. My mother contacts my fiancé, asking about wedding details but won't talk to me. On the brighter side, my fiancé's family has been incredible, helping with the lawsuits, assisting with wedding preparations, and much more. I am deeply thankful for their support. Other members of my family have backed off, apologized, and expressed a desire to make amends for the hurtful things that were said. My fiancé and I have decided to have our wedding in November. After we're married, we plan to try for children. We're both excited about becoming parents. The next story revolves around my business and the decision not to split control equally between my children. I'm a 65-year-old electrician from Germany, looking forward to settling down, traveling with my wife, and spoiling our grandchildren for the rest of our lives. I have built up a small business with 23 employees. My son, Alexander, who is 36 years old, will take control of it. I also have 2 daughters whom I am proud of. Laura, 34, has a master's degree in biochemistry, and Marie, 30, is a middle school teacher in mathematics and sports. Recently, I shared my plan of family gathering. Laura was supportive, but Marie accused me of favoritism, which I denied. I explained that Alexander had worked with me for 17 years, starting as a trainee and eventually earning his master's license as an electrician. He has demonstrated passion, dedication, and leadership, training 7 of our employees along the way. My daughters were offered opportunities to work with me during school holidays, but they pursued their own careers, which my wife and I supported financially and emotionally. I sought opinions on Reddit, asking if I was in the wrong. Most responses were in favor of my decision to leave the business to Alexander. People pointed out that hard work should be rewarded, emphasizing that he had invested his time and energy in the business and had helped make it successful. They agreed that leaving the business to him was a way to ensure stability for our employees and their families. Additionally, they acknowledged that it was my business and my money, and I had the right to decide who should inherit it. German law might have different views, but the consensus was that my choice was justifiable. In this situation, it's crucial for your uncle and cousins to consult a lawyer, as there might be legal costs involved in compensating his other children when he decides to pass the company to only one child. It's not being in a hole, it's just practical business sense. Marie may lack experience in this industry or running a business, which makes your son, Alexander, the most qualified candidate given his 17 years of dedicated work with you. Marie's bitterness appears to stem more from Alexander's close relationship with you than from the handover of the business. It's worth considering that both Marie and Alexander had equal opportunities. They could have chosen to pursue a career as an electrician, but only Alexander followed through. It's unfair for Marie to resent the situation based on her own choices. As for your last story, about your inheritance, you're not the whole for not splitting your inheritance equally with your cousins. Your paternal grandmas will specify the distribution of her money among her grandchildren, not anticipating the number of children your dad and uncle would have. Your parents are right in asserting that it's your money, and you should be the one to decide how to handle it after gaining access to it. The accusations of selfishness are unwarranted, especially considering the unique circumstances that led to the uneven distribution. Your upbringing and your parents' financial decisions are entirely unrelated to the situation at hand. I had to buy my own car, while my cousins had theirs bought for them by their parents. My dad's aunt constantly fueled my uncle's belief that my dad was the favorite child, which left my uncle resentful. He now uses the fact that I'm receiving more money to support that idea. I refuse to split the money because it's rightfully mine. The inheritance was meant for the children of my dad, and it's not my fault that my parents had only one child. My parents taught me financial responsibility, and I plan to put most of the money into a lifetime ISA. I intend to use some of it to travel after university and invest the rest wisely. I'm not planning on squandering it all in one go. Furthermore, Connor and Olivia's shares are substantial, far more than most people inherit and more than many have access to in their early 20s. Connor has already spent most of his inheritance on partying, traveling, and cars, so I don't see why I should have to compensate for his choices. Regarding the messages I've received, I want to clarify that my grandma did not exclude my dad and uncle. She only left the money from her various bank accounts to the grandchildren. Her other assets, such as property, jewelry, art collection, and investments, were divided between them. To those who say I'm being selfish, I firmly believe that my decision aligns with my grandma's wishes. Imagine if the roles were reversed. Would they willingly share their inheritance? I don't think so. This is a fair, but not equal, situation. My grandmother was fair by splitting the money 50-50 between her son's descendants. It's their entitlement and not a matter of greed. Anyone questioning it can express their concerns at her grave.